Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Entrepreneur Hour, the globally televised Entrepreneur Hour. My name is Miguel Sanchez. I'm your host, and I create content around monetization and innovation. And today, I had a conversation with a client very early in the morning, and we're going over a project that we're almost finished with, and it made me think of an episode. I woke up this morning like, what am I going to talk about, right? But had this conversation with this client, and we're going over the project that is done, and we're just going over the learnings. And the client goes, you know what's interesting about this project? If I would have known what we ended up figuring out together, I wouldn't have had to hire you, right? And I was like, but we're cool. So I was like, definitely. But in a way, what we just did together was we innovated, right? We figured out a way. Sure, it probably changes how much money I can make from this particular project in the future. But basically what we did is we figured out a way to make your company much more in control of your technology and your product and save money. And that's what I want to do, right? At the end of the day, anybody could build anything. But if you can help companies save money and innovate, I think that's the place to be, right? So what I started to figure out was how did we do it? How did we do it? We basically started working with this platform called Bubble.io. Bubble.io is basically a tool for rapid prototyping that basically changes the way I may do things going forward, right? Because if you think about it, if anybody's watching as an entrepreneur or a developer, an agency, a startup founder, whatever, you understand that you come up with an idea, right? Let's say I come up with an idea and then I break it down to have a developer develop it. It's very rare, if ever, you're going to get that idea right the first time. You don't know what's going to happen, right? So you can say, all right, I believe people are going to want to do what my app expects them to do, but then when you get on there and you have them using it, you see that they're not understanding or they're not doing what you want them to do, so you have to change it. So that's what rapid prototyping is, right? If you look at any app you're using right now, wherever you're watching me, this app did not start this way, right? YouTube did not start that way. Twitter did not start that way. Instagram did not start that way. Twitch did not start that way. So Twitter, I don't know where else I'm at, but yeah, I think that's everybody. Facebook did not start that way. They started out with the first basic idea, and then it had to change. Here's the reason rapid prototyping is the future of development, I think. Because in the past, and still right now, but of course I'm on the cutting edge of trying to figure everything out for the future. In the past, when you create a project, you have a developer build your first idea. That takes up most of your money, right? So if you say, I want this person to build me an app, you are basically saying, I'm going to spend X amount of money to hold on, let me make sure my audio is working. Yep. You're gonna spend as a certain budget to make sure this idea becomes live to the public. The problem in the past is you would spend all of your budget on that first version, right? So when a company came to me and they said, hey, I want you to make an app, we say, okay, what's the version you want to go live with, and let's figure out how much that's going to cost. And we build it, they put it out in the world, and then they come back and say, okay, here's what we've learned based on having that app in the public. We need to change this, and that. And now they have to pay us to develop the next phase of that idea. Well, rapid prototyping, and based off the project that we just did, And my client realizing is, if we would have done it a different way, and even though we did use this software, and I'm going to show it to you in a few, and I don't know, the Instagram people, you're going to have to jump on YouTube to actually see, I think, but the idea was, what Bubble.io does is it allows you to create something very simple, very fast, to test the idea out, right? So what that means is, instead of spending most of your budget on the first version of your idea, you can spend that budget iterating your idea till it gets as further along as possible within that budget. And that is a powerful, powerful, powerful idea, because I think is going to change digital entrepreneurship. And I know that's a big statement, but, and I'm not just saying Bubble.io, I'm sure there's other platforms like that being created and that have been created already. But from doing a project in Bubble right now, what I've seen is this is going to change the way companies like me have to operate, right? And developers, you definitely, if you're a developer and if you're a founder, a startup founder, you really need to look at these programs. You need to look at something like Bubble.io and see. Bubble.io is not for an app though. It's for web apps. So if you want to make an app, I'm pretty sure there's stuff like it. But the reason why I thought today was a good day to talk about this is because you have to stay on top of what is going on in your industry or in your entrepreneurship journey. And if you, what happened with this project was, the client came to us. They said they have a certain amount of budget to build this web application to do a specific thing for a specific group of people. So we UX'd it, we UI'd it, we built it. Oh, but once we were about to develop it, the client came back and said, would you be interested in working with this prototyping software? And me and my team, we always love a challenge, especially me. I'm always like, yeah, let's figure it out. So when he brought Bubble.io to us, I hadn't seen it before. I never even knew what it was, right? I knew there was things like that being worked on. I just never used one. So I said, I'm sure we can figure it out. We can figure anything out. And he said, I would rather use this because right now it's a nonprofit. So they go for grants. So they got a grant to build this. So the grant was going to run out, and if they spent the money now, they get to use it. If not, they lose it. So they wanted to build this application to help the people they work for. They help. So he said, the problem is, once we build it, I'm not going to have money to keep iterating. So I'm going to need a system that I could iterate. Luckily, this person who runs the company, he's pretty technical. So he said, can we use a program like this so you guys can set it up and then I can iterate? So we said, sure, why not? So we started going through the process. And of course, with any innovation, it's growing pains. We're figuring stuff out. We've never done it. Both of us have never been involved in a project like it. So today, in today's morning, kind of post-mortem, we're talking about the pros, the cons, the goods, the bads. And we realize that, and both of us, he used to be a developer and now he runs this organization. And I used to be a developer, but now I run my organization and I consult with startups, brands. Now I'm heading into the educational space to consult with education organizations. And we both were like, do you think what I think? And he was like, no doubt. The development and startup environment and even consulting is going to change because of stuff like this. I'm not saying Bubble is the end of the game. I'm sure stuff like it is going to get more and more used and created. And there's definitely pros and cons to using Bubble versus developing something from scratch, right? So if I had to tell you what's the difference, first of all, let me explain Bubble. Right? Bubble, and let me show it to you on the screen. If you're watching on Instagram, sorry, you're gonna have to get on the YouTube to see this screen, or watch it later, whatever. Let me show you what Bubble is. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so Bubble, they say, they on the website, it says, the best way to build web apps without code, right? So what Bubble is aiming to do is to remove the layer of you needing some high-level technical person to try your idea out. And that's powerful. That's what Shopify did for e-commerce, right? If you look at Shopify, now you can, and I made a video way back, I could put up a store in 15 minutes with Shopify, right? Before, when I first started in this game, you needed months and a bunch of people, and I was one of them. And then when I saw Shopify, and it basically simplified that process of having very skilled people get you an e-commerce store up. And now when I see what the project we just did with Bubble, I'm really looking at this. And if you look at, you can see what it does, right? You can literally drag and drop. You can literally drag and drop pieces that create your project, right? And then you connect it to the data, and it works. And then all you gotta do is move stuff around, change stuff around. And I really honestly believe that if you are creating something right now, you may want to try it. It's free. You can try it for free. And because we just finished a project doing it, and we realized something at the end of the project, which was we have the ability to change the look of this thing and change and iterate pretty quickly. Pretty quickly. So this morning we pretty much iterated on the fly. We had an hour and a half catch up and post-mortem, like finish the project out. And during the call, we were looking through Bubble, and we found another template that makes more sense for the thing that we just built. And we were like, how hard could it be to switch to this? So right now that's what we're doing. But at the end of the day, I was like, this is why it's important to, if you're a company like mine, Mass Ideation, where you charge companies for development, you need to make sure you understand this, because I'm looking at this and I'm saying this is the killer of my type of company. So what do I have to do? As an innovator, I look for the things that have the biggest risk in killing my company, right? And I say, all right, I better be learning how to stop those things or use those things. This is one of them. Design, develop, and run powerful products with Bubble. Full functionality, no code. Pixel perfect designs. So this is where I don't so far agree. There was some challenge with making the design as good as I would have wanted, but that could have been many things. It's our first time ever working with this. You know, my developers maybe don't have as much of an understanding of the environment as, you know, some others. So maybe we could have done something that was a little bit more pixel perfect, but I don't know. Scalable infrastructure. So that's one thing. There's a back end to this thing that allows people to basically change the data, the way they see the data. So that to me is a huge hold on. A huge opportunity for dashboards. That's another thing. So to create a dashboard in the past was like its own whole entire project, right? So now with a Bubble, you can like literally create a dashboard and an interface and test your idea pretty quickly. And there's templates you can buy, so it makes it even faster. So when I'm thinking about this, and the reason why I say rapid prototyping is because I think the future of businesses like mine, which is a consulting agency for ad agencies, brands, technology startups, education organizations, rapid prototyping is important because you're going to have to try and see what people are okay with doing and what they're not, and then changing it along the way. Like if you looked at Facebook, Instagram, YouTube today versus the first day it launched, it would look like rocket science. There's 1,000 new things on these programs that weren't there day one. So they introduced them to you slowly. Here's a new feature. One new feature at a time. But that feature there's a whole back-end process called product management that basically powers that process. So what product management means is what I'm talking about, is rapid prototyping. It means we put something out, we see what the data shows us, and then we change it. So what product management does is it teaches you how to read that data and then figure out what is the next logical thing to do, right? So if you think about the bubble infrastructure, it's pretty much built, look at this, join a thriving community of bubble developers. And I mean, it's pretty new. I'm not going to say like there's a lot of people on it. So let's talk about the features, right? You can build anything with no code. Build any web app with no code. There's some truth to that if you wanted to just take a template and just connect data to it. Of course, we were doing something a little more custom, so we had to do some code. Customize the UX, manage the data accounts, integrate with anything. So what we ended up doing was, because our client, they had an Airtable database, which is like, it's basically like a Google spreadsheet on steroids, where they had a lot of their information. So we had to pull that information into Bubble, right? So integrate with Airtable. We did have to do some work, but it did. Harness total design freedom. This is where I didn't see total design freedom, but I do believe it will get there. Technology gets really good really fast. What I saw from this project is, if you are a developer, if you run a company like mine that is paid to build products or marketing applications, you need to be up on this. And I'm looking at it, and I'm going to start offering it to my clients, because I'm sure they're going to like the fact that I say, how about this? Instead of just paying us for the first version, why don't you pay us for multiple versions by using this? And we can stick around longer and teach you how to product manage. And if you want to have us still help you, we could have a monthly retainer to do that, or you could take it and go. The difference between that and the old school way was, you need a lot more people. You need to spend a lot more money, not even just on the people, on the upfront infrastructure to create your app. And then you were beholden to developers only really understanding how to update this thing. Now, my client can literally go in here. He is more technical than most. But I really would like to know, like, anyone who's not super technical, if it's something you pick up on. I don't know. I think it's hard for me to revert to time when I didn't understand the things I understand now. So I would like to see from any startup founder. And what's interesting is, I made a post on Twitter the other day, and then I used the image and I put it in Instagram and all these, and LinkedIn. And startup founders started asking me, hey, how easy is Bubble? And I told them, look, I'll be honest, I didn't develop it myself. I didn't develop the project. I managed it and I did the UX. But from what I saw, pretty easy compared to the other alternative, which is learning how to develop, learning a framework or a code language, backend database. To learn all that stuff from scratch is work. And I'm not telling you shouldn't learn it. Of course you should learn it. But if you are the startup founder that doesn't want to be the technical co-founder, but you also have the idea, you might want to look at Bubble. And I mean, I'm going to start trying to figure out how to get more clients to use Bubble. Scale with both hosting. So there's another big thing. So let's say you put up your app and it starts doing well. Thanks, Ed. Let's say it starts doing well and you start getting a lot of traffic, right? Let's say you start getting like an unbelievable amount of traffic. The old school way was you would have it on a server. You would have to pick up the servers, make sure it's load balanced, so one server doesn't go down and your whole application is down. So then Amazon came out with AWS, where they manage and host it, and you could scale as big as you want. You're just going to pay, but nothing's going to go down ever. So now you look at a situation like this, which is like a win-win on both sides of that middle area, which is you can build and you don't even have to know about AWS. You just build it, and if it grows, it grows. And if it grows really big, awesome. You're going to pay more, sure, but it's going to be a worthwhile fee because it means you're making more money, hopefully, if you're monetizing correctly, which is another thing. As a product manager, you have to make sure you're doing. You have to look at the product and saying, and always be thinking, how can this thing make more money to sustain itself and grow? So this is another big part of it. Of course, when you go to the pricing, you'll understand some more of that. Expand, engage, measure. So you have all these ways of tracking. Grow your audience. So they have like some good transactional email stuff, which I haven't had the chance to play with that yet. Control SEO by setting meta tags, customizing URLs. So I have experience. We did some of that. Even though this application doesn't need it to be SEO, but we still learned a little bit about that. Share the workload. So this is another very cool thing. So if you go to the old school model of web development, you have multiple web developers working on their own files, and then there's like this Git repository where everybody puts their files up. But to make sure that people are not overwriting stuff, there's this point where the code has to be checked against and say, okay, is this the latest and what's been changed? So that all needs to be managed in a repository that also is another layer of something you have to manage as a person like me. But with this, you can have multiple people working in the same environment. It's managing the changes for you. The code repository is not really any code repository because it's just an app that you're moving stuff around with. They in the back end are saving your code, but you don't need like a GitHub or anything like that on top of this. So in a way that could save you some money, depending on what service you use. I think GitHub is free now. It used to cost money. So when you look at this, and it's just like, if you don't believe in it right now, you can see how it is the future. So here's another big reason it's the future. Free to start building. Pay as you grow. So think about that. I'm a person with a great idea. I don't know how to code. I don't know anything about technology. You can get on this, buy a template, launch your idea, but you're going to pay monthly. Here's the deal, right? You can pay annually or monthly. So in the beginning, it's free. But if you want to, I guess, remove the branding of Bubble, which of course you're going to want to do, the lowest account is $29 a month. Hosting. If you had an idea and you wanted to pay and put it on AWS, just have a website in general, the domain and all that, you're going to pay probably more than $30 a month. So right there, it's kind of worth it just in its own way. $30 a month, if you get to the point where you want to launch this and not have Bubble, $30 a month is $360 a year. If you had to pay a developer to build this idea, you would definitely be paying more than $360. No doubt about it. Because you will need a designer, a UX designer, a UI designer, or maybe sometimes they're both, and a developer. There's no way that's going to cost you $360. So here you can go in with $360, play around, create your own thing. Now, of course, you go up levels and levels and levels. It can go up to $529 a month, which you think could be a lot, right? It's not that much if you think about having multiple developers working on your project every month. Each of those developers are going to cost more than that. Each one of them, right? So when you look at it is it scalable? I think it is. And what happens is I believe a product like this may eliminate the need for developers and put more of a need in product managers. People that can see the data, see the marketing side, the technology side, the business side, and say, I think I need to move this button, make this button a little bit bigger. So let's try it. Of course, designers are going to be wanted to make sure it looks good, because if you don't have a design eye, you can make something that's ugly and then nobody wants to use it. And it's not on purpose. People just are mentally, there's something that happens when there's something that's well designed and something not well designed. So that's why designers make money and do what they do, because if you design it well, people will use it. If you don't design it well, people won't use it. So there's some of that, sure. But if in the beginning you pick a template that's well designed, all you have to do is, ride that wave. So when I say what is bubble versus regular development, the difference is with regular development, you're going to need the same designer UX person, you're going to need a developer, and you're going to need a person to oversee a lot of that if you're in the entrepreneurship role, where you need to make sure that the developer you have your own code, you're understanding how to bring in more people to help work on it. Versus bubble, just log in, pick a template, and you can go. That's pretty innovative. I constantly look for innovations, and when the client brought bubble to me, and I was like, oh man, I already hired the developer. And I told him, I said, look, I hired the developer because we were going to build it in, the client had agreed that we will build it in a certain tech stack based on the normal popular tech stacks, Python, whatever the database, MySQL, whatever it was. I think whatever. So we agreed this was the good tech stack. I brought developers together to build that tech stack. I paid the developers to start. They're starting, and then the client brings this. And I said, well, we've already started. I already paid these guys. Let me see if I gotta get new developers. The developers luckily felt like they wanted the challenge too. And what I told them, I said, look, you may want to look at this because this could really change your field. And if you're working with me on a project and you have experience now with a project using it, you may get out in front of the curve on this. So they were like, all right, and we made it happen. But it's a big shift that could really help entrepreneurship. At the end of the day, a lot of ideas don't get off the ground because the entrepreneurs are unable to make it happen. Right? They just can't technically create their idea. So they need a technical person like me or a developer, someone like that. Now with something like this, you may not. And think about how much money that saves you, how many times you can try different things to see what's working. It's super duper interesting. And I'm glad the client did that, because it's forced innovation on me, which is awesome. And now I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it for startups. I'm looking at it for myself, for my consulting with different entity types. There's companies that build stuff like this for internal use and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on internal use things that Bubble can do out the box. Probably on the small plan too, on the $29 a month plan. That is going to be a shift. And don't you think when companies start going in to these organizations and say, oh, you just paid $100,000 for that? I can show you how we could have made it for, of course, the company's going to make money. And then there's a $360 a year. It's going to be a much different price change. But this is where it's not like that ends the work It just shifts the work. So even me, I started as a developer, I started as a designer, animator, whatever it is. I knew product management was where it was going. I took a certification course to get certified in product management because I knew the future wasn't going to be in knowing how to do the skills. It's going to be on the overall thinking and the iteration. Because none of this stuff stays the same the first time they build it. None of it. So what a bubble does is allows you as the idea person, the agency, the brand, the education, the startup, to control your own destiny and not have to raise as much money. I know maybe it won't do it's not going to have AI. It's not going to have certain things. Like if you're trying to do something that technical, yes. And you should be trying to do something like that as well. And maybe you get to a point where you outgrow Bubble. But I'm sure Bubble's going to evolve. I'm sure Bubble's going to evolve to allow things to hook in and allow you to run AI on your data and stuff like that. I mean, it might already. We just did one project on it. But I will be doing more. I'm looking at starting to go after clients for it. We'll see. But what I see right now, if you're watching this, you're an entrepreneur or you're someone in tech. The reason to watch and pay attention to stuff like this is whatever job you have, somebody's building an automation to take it out. Bubble is an automation. If you don't realize it, Bubble is an automation to have to use less developers. So if you think, all jobs out of all jobs, the developers are the safest, I actually think their developers are in one of the most vulnerable positions. Why is that? 2 different reasons. One, all you see is development projects. Development education. They have CS for All in New York City, where I'm at, where they literally are putting computer science, which is development, in every school. There's many nonprofits teaching development. What's going to create is a commodity. It's going to make it so there's so many developers that the cost of development is going to have to come down because there's competition. Good, that's a good and bad thing. But when you look at stuff like this is why I tell developers, and I was having a conversation with one while working on this project that wasn't working on it, and I was telling him, look, you need to really shift your thinking, right? Like, if this hits and you're not on top of it, what's going to happen to you? And I'm not talking about Bubble specifically only. This idea of rapid prototyping over development. So rapid prototyping, automating the development out of the process. What I just showed you, even just that little animation of what they had, the person dragging and dropping, that used to take multiple people to do. You need a designer, developer. Right there was you clicking and dragging. Done. So that's 2 automations, two skill sets automated away. If this works. So why not? Why not? And this is why my content is always around innovation. Always around innovation. Monetization and innovation. You have to think. Innovation is what has the biggest possibility of taking me out. As a company, as an individual. Right? So if I was just a developer right now and I came across this, I would be like, I need to learn this because this has a chance of taking me out. I am a business right now that sells development. This has a chance of taking me out. Making a lot less money. So what's the fix? Product management. That's why I saw this coming and I innovated by going and taking a product management course because I saw all these programs making developers left and right, and I was like, eventually development is going to be very commonplace. And I'm not saying you shouldn't learn it. I think every single human being should learn how to code. I'm just saying, you need to, if this is your career, you need to look at stuff like this. You definitely need to understand what's going on. Try it, play around with it, because one thing you can do is, this is the truth of it all, and this is what I do this sometimes too. Just by you understanding this, it's kind of like a do-it-yourself innovation. You could go off, charge clients to do the old school model, the 100,000, whatever it is, to build all this crazy stuff, and use Bubble and save a ton of money and profit. All that. Eventually we'll catch up. So you only have a short amount of time where you could do that. And it's possible, sure. And don't think it was in a model I didn't think of course. But I think learning how to make this business a product management business is more valuable than just trying to win and profit as much as possible on a few projects till it's figured out. And I could be wrong about that. You know, I could make a bunch of money and the product management thing never works out. If I choose one or the other, I think the product management role, and it fits more with everything I do anyway. Because as a CTO, founder and stuff like that, CCO, my idea is the more product management work I have, the better I am at it, the more I can charge for it. So now if Mass Ideation, people are coming to me more for the product management, the CTO services, what do I care what they buy from us, as long as they get the result that they want and are happy. And in this case, the client got the result they want, they're happy, and they're in a better position of saving money, and they're much more in control of their idea than before we worked together. So what client is not going to be happy with that? Now, I don't know if I'll have, because their role specifically, the person is very capable of continuing to do that. But still, now that idea, which is very good for the community, has much more likelihood of actually working, which is what I'm in it for. I don't want to build products and just waste my time. Some of this stuff takes hundreds of hours. And if it doesn't work, it's literally like you spent hundreds of hours on something that was a waste of time. Sure, you got paid, you pay your bills. But to me, paying bills is like whatever. I'm trying to make impact, right? Like I want to create things that help people. Mass ideation, right? Like help the masses through ideas and make sure they come to life and work. So in a way, Bubble may help me do that more, right? We'll see. But I wanted to create this today because I feel like I got a lot of DMs about when I posted that. And then off the conversation I had this morning, I was like, I think entrepreneurs need to hear about this, need to try it, need to understand it. If you didn't see my post, now maybe you're watching this video and you're going to try it. Because I honestly believe you need to be trying it if you're an entrepreneur or a developer. I am going to continue trying it. I did try it. But this is heading down a road. I literally saw an AI. This is heading down this road. Saw an AI where you draw a drawing of what you think the website should look like. Boxes. 1 box, 2 box, 3 box. You can even write. I think this should say welcome and have a form. And this should say sign up today. And you show the picture to the camera and the AI builds the website. And no developer. A drawing, hold up to the camera AI looks at it, builds the website. HTML, database, everything. This is coming. And if you are not prepared and you think, oh, I'm gonna create a new career just as a developer, you need to be looking at stuff like this too. Sure, I'm not saying I know development will always be, but the top developers will always be. So what happens is, and I literally seen this in my career, the top 1%ers, they get a bunch of work. They get unlimited work. And thank God I was one of those people at one point. The people who are under the 1%, they will have to fight for the scraps. So what I'm saying here is, if you're not a 1% developer and you're fighting for scraps, and this is an option, the scraps are the people who are willing to give the scraps, they're gonna use this over you. So you got a point where you gotta say, I'm gonna become a 1%er developer, or I'm gonna look at stuff like this. And I'll be honest, if it was me going back in time and watching this video, I would go for this over the 1%er. Because I ended up I spent a lot of time becoming a 1%er, and I don't even use those skills anymore. This skill is probably forever. The skill of product management, you could use it for anything. Developing, you can develop anything, but if nobody needs a developer, you can't use it, right? But you can use a product management skill. So, and that's what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur, whether you understand it or not, you're a product manager. What ends up happening with tech startups is the person who replaces the CEO is the product manager, right? So because the product manager has to oversee the entire product. They have to understand marketing. They have to understand how it affects the monetization, the business. They have to understand how it affects the marketing, how the marketing can draw traffic into to people that are really going to want to use this. They have to sit at this bird's eye view, and that's what Bubble allows. It'll allow you to sit at this bird's eye view and iterate your idea. So I can think of so many people who reached out to me and before this existed, and it was like, oh man, that's a good idea, but you're gonna need 2-3 developers, a designer, UX person. You're gonna have to spend at least 10-15K to make that idea possible. And that's with a person like me that knows how to cut cost. But other places it'll be 50, 80, 100, right? So that idea is not possible, right? They don't have that. So then we got to try to raise money for it. All right, let's go here, talk to this person, raise money. And not everybody has an idea that's fundraisable in that way. This now, if you're willing to put the time in, it's just time, your time. So you can make the idea possible. It can become something that exists, without having to go through all those extra steps. You could put something up, test it out, get data, see if people are doing it, iterate, and prove the concept. And then go with venture capital or angel investors or equity crowdfunding and be in a much more likely position to succeed. Because in the old school model, Bubble versus old school versus Bubble versus development is you need to raise a bunch of money to make that first version. Then you see what the iteration is. Hopefully you have some more budget left over in the fundraise to make the iterations. But eventually you're going to run out of money and you're going to have to fundraise again. So with this, you can probably get through a lot of those iterations with no money or very little money. And you could be raising that money more for marketing or advertising or whatever, promotional stunts, whatever you may want to think about to get more eyes on your product. So I just think like I wanted to create this today because there were too many things happening with Bubble in this last week where I felt like, you know what? And actually my client today said it. He said, this can change entrepreneurship. And I was like, you're right. You know, his thing is about help. His product is about helping. You know what? I shouldn't talk about it right now. But if you're not watching this video right this second, it's basically Bronx Exchange. I just did a project for Bronx Exchange, which is an MIT-backed nonprofit. And I made their website, bronxexchange.com. It's bronxchange.com. And we're creating this back-end system where if you are a Bronx business, I guess if you're watching in your Bronx business, this application is being built to help you, right? So the idea was when they came to me with this product, they basically said, We want to create a product that helps Bronx businesses understand what's available to them. Because we feel like as entrepreneurs, they're just dealing with their entity, and they don't understand all the things that places like the Bronx have to help them. So they came to me and they said, what can we do? How can we make that happen? So I did my CTO thing, my UX strategy thing, and we came up with a plan. We created it, and now it's about to go live. Right now we're doing a public beta, and we're QA testing it. But this is the Bubble project. So when you get on, you'll see it's a Bubble project that we created. It took a while, but it was our first one. It was the first time we were doing Bubble. Off the learning, and even it was learning on the client side too. Even the client said, I figured out ways to make this go faster. I would have told you to do it this way instead of the way we did it. So there was learning, and every time you learn, it goes faster and faster and faster. So if you are a Bronx business, reach out. I would like to put you on the platform, because what's also going to happen on the platform is we're going to find procurement agencies like the Bronx Zoo and companies like that are going to be looking for people to fill services. And on this Bronx Exchange app that I built, we are going to match you so you can get a contract that you probably wouldn't have been able to get before. So that's the point of this project that I just did. Dominic, what's up? So Kale, what's up? Oh, you're gonna do another demo? You know what? I'll show you really quick. Bubble. I didn't show the actual product, but I showed Bubble. I showed and I'm not sure if you're familiar with Bubble, but here's Bubble. Bubble is a rapid prototyping. Look, and Khalid, you're one of the 1%ers. You're one of the 1%ers of the 1% of the developers. I feel like, and I would like your insights. I feel like this could really damage how many developers are needed for projects, because in the beginning you could use something like this instead of, for most ideas, not like what you're working on. Khalid is working on some really, really bleeding edge stuff. But for most ideas, I believe they can be rapid prototyped in something like Bubble. So Khalid, I would like you to check it out. Let me know what you think, actually. But yeah, bubble.io, check it out. Yeah, and just this is why I say innovate every day. Like when I end the show, which I'm about to do, I say innovate every day because you gotta always be on the lookout for innovation. Like that, the client could have said that to me, and I just would have been like, okay. But I was like, wait a minute. He just said something that I need to pay attention to. The client literally told me, if I knew about this, I probably wouldn't have had to hire you. Devs being replaced with templates and automation. Yes. See, so Khalid, like, what would you say as a developer, talking to probably nowhere near as good a developer as you? Would you tell them to start looking at Bubble, or would you tell them just get better at development? I'd be really interested in anyone watching, but Khalid is one of the best developers I've ever worked with, so I know his insight. He works for Apple right now as a developer, so he's like top of the world level, right? So what do you think as a developer? Do you think stuff like Bubble has a chance of, changing the development landscape? I definitely want to hear more from you. You can put in the chat anytime. But yeah, I think if you learn anything in this episode, if you take anything from this episode, it's no skill set, no business is safe. You have to constantly be looking at the next innovation that could possibly take you out, understand it, and go into it and start playing with it. Why? Is because if you don't, you're either innovating or dying. Somebody's making it and they're going to just murder your business. So like right now, I just said, when I saw this, I said, whoa, this is going to shift how mass ideation has to work one day. Because we get hired to do stuff like this. So let me start understanding it right now. Right? And now I am ahead of the curve, and I created content around it because I want more people to understand this, especially people from my community. Yes, devs should work smarter, not harder. Find ways to not have to reinvent the wheel. Right there, for one of the best in the world. you gotta look at tools like this, because I can really see. Imagine this scenario. They come to a project, they come up with a project, they say, hey, we want you to build this. You say, okay, I need $100,000 to build it. Then this other developer comes and says, I need $20,000 to build it. And they're like, whoa, this developer's using Bubble. And it's going to take him 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. He's going to make 20 grand in 3 days. The client is going to be okay with the fact that they're paying 20 grand versus 100 grand and getting the same exact product. That developer just made 20 grand in 3 days. Right? That's the possibility versus having a whole bunch of people work on something, make 100,000 and maybe have a margin of 20-30%, if that, versus this person undercut, but they won big time, right? So at the end of the day, it's just these things are coming and you have to basically understand them. There will always be edge cases that services like that don't do yet. And definitely, that's what I said like AI, certain things like that won't be there. But you can build those capabilities and integrate, yeah. Maybe even sell that solution in the marketplace. Exactly. So that's what happens in places like this. In Bubble, there's a marketplace. Let me try to show you actually. Here's the marketplace. Wait, no, it's not the marketplace. Marketplace. Build, extend, and create robust products on Bubble. So that's when you see things like plugins, templates, agencies. So this is what I'm looking at. I'm like, all right, how do I become a Bubble certified agency? If I'm one of even 100, should be able to get more work that way, right? So, and if you're watching this, you're welcome. But if you're a startup founder, I really think where the biggest shift of using stuff like this is going to happen is in communities of color and innovation. Why is that? Because we have trouble raising that initial fund to build the idea. Here, you don't need to raise it. Or maybe you do, but much less. You can just get somebody that knows Bubble. Reach out to me, I know Bubble. Nah. But you should learn Bubble. You should learn Bubble yourself. It's learnable. It's not as hard as you think. It's nowhere near as hard as you think. So on that note, I'm gonna run and thank you for everybody who watched. Thank you, Khalid, for chiming in. Yeah, they're eliminating a lot of the heavy lift. You don't need DevOps and DB admins, etc. From an Apple developer that works on the cutting edge of Apple stuff, telling you that this is a problem if you're just a middle of the road developer. You need to understand this or really step your game up to a Khalid level, or you are in trouble. So that's why I'm trying to create this stuff to make sure people understand what's coming around the corner, and they can deal with it and choose a path. At least now you understand this path, right? You understand the options, and I'm seeing it myself, and I'm understanding the options, and I'm telling myself I'm diving into Bubble for that business. I'm diving into Bubble. Let's see what happens. Wish me luck, and definitely innovate every day. Thank you for watching. If you watch this anywhere, you got this far, definitely like it, please. Thanks and if you like it, more people see it, so you're helping more people and you're helping me. So thank you so much. Thank you, Khalid, for commenting and diversify. You're right. And thank you for chiming in. I always love having people that are chiming in and making it a conversation. So thank you again. Thank you for everybody who's watching. I'm trying to keep bringing value to you, keep telling you about the crazy technology stuff I see, and teaching you how to innovate every day. So thank you.